Hi, my name is Jackie, and for those of you who don't know, what I just did was something called American Sign Language. What I said was, "Hi, my name is Jackie Jacobs. I have been learning ASL for 3 years at my school. I learned how to give directions and how to order food and a bunch of other things. I work in the fast food industry, and for those of you who are familiar with that, know that it is extremely fast-paced, and the main source of communication that we use is our voices. We also use our ears to listen to our customers. But one day something happened that had not happened before, and we had a deaf person come through our drive-thru. As I have mentioned previously, my name is Jackie Jacobs. I am credible to talk about this topic because I have been in ASL for a little over 3 years now. I've attended many deaf events, and I was part of ASL Club. Now, when we had a deaf person come in through the drive-thru, we had a couple of the employees kind of freak out because they had no idea what was happening. But since I knew how to sign, I was able to communicate with the customer. Finding a job is extremely difficult when you are deaf. Most places of business require activities where hearing is required, or lack of resources needed for those in the deaf community. According to verywellhealth.org, 10% of aged deaf adults were seeking employment in 2015. Building a desired future with low income and paying for colleges is hard. Despite the requirements from the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, schools, colleges, and universities often don't support students who are deaf. 33% of the average hearing adult has a bachelor's degree or higher, whereas 18% of the average deaf adult has the same degree or higher. According to theconversation.com, it is estimated that it costs the global economy $750 billion each year from deaf people. This is due to late diagnosis, undiagnosed deafness, impact of employment, and lack of opportunity for deaf people. Only 1 out of 10 deaf people have access to hearing aids, and 1 out of 40 in developing countries. Many deaf people can communicate by reading lips, facial expressions, and body language, but that is extremely difficult and very straining, especially with the current situation of the pandemic with masks. It is extremely difficult to read lips. It's actually impossible. Places that use speakers to make announcements also creates a barrier, like airports and schools when they use signals to announce like a delay in flight or a start of a class. How are you supposed to know that your flight's delayed 15 minutes if you can't hear anything? Communication and language is developed in the early years of childhood. When a child is deaf and put into a hearing environment, they are often expected to read lips and speak. ClinicalChildren's.org says that hearing loss can affect a child's development of speech and language skills. Most deaf people are able to use their voices but prefer not to. Struggling to live in a hearing world can lead to serious mental health issues in the deaf community. Verywellmind.com reported a study involving deaf people. 41% stated that they believed that the communication problems, family stress, and prejudice actions against the deaf community contribute to suicidal thoughts, depression, and substance abuse in some cases. Social norms also look different in every community, especially the deaf community. Deaf culture is often not taught at all in schools. And so, for example, if a deaf person walks into a building, or if there are 2 deaf people having a conversation, then oftentimes people can do things that are extremely disrespectful to them. Some states in the U.S. also do not consider ASL a foreign language, meaning that they will not accommodate to their needs. One way that I was able to accommodate to the needs of the deaf person who came in through our drive-thru is by using my sign language to help them get their order. One way ASL can be beneficial is because it promotes awareness. Leadingwithlanguages.org says that learning ASL helps develop a strong appreciation for the deaf community. This leads to the promotion of the language and acceptance of the language as well. Learning ASL also allows for barriers in society to be broken. For example, in a social gathering, you notice a deaf person isolated from the group. That gives a perfect opportunity to practice signing as well as building a connection. Some people know baby sign language, signs such as more or hungry or pain, thirsty, etc. It has the great potential to become a great form of communication before verbal skills. According to aslblogs.goreact.com, research suggests that earlier communication could lead to greater confidence in childhood and beyond. When you learn a new language orally, you learn about the culture, the country, and everything that goes along with it. That is the same thing for American Sign Language. Attending a deaf event is a great step to get involved in the American Sign Language community. According to J. Parrish Lewis, a writer of monkeymind.com, the best thing to do while attending a deaf event is to immerse yourself in the environment. Don't hold back, just go right in and have fun. Some people believe that people, especially children, should not learn how to sign. They should solely rely on speaking and reading lips. They believe that deaf people should not learn ASL and should adapt to the hearing world. DeafEd.net writes, many hearing parents are unable to communicate clearly with their children who are deaf. They are reluctant to learn sign language because they are denying their children's deafness. 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents, who most often are undereducated on deafness. Many parents believe that their child is better off speaking English, but this is not the case. It actually hinders the child's ability to develop, and it actually hurts them in the long run by not teaching them their native language. Deaf adults who lack language skills also have difficulties in the long run and end up not being able to live on their own. Thus far, I have gone into detail about the importance of spreading awareness and the importance of introduction to the deaf community. Let's dive into what it would look like if you learned ASL. Learning this language can connect the hearing world and the deaf world. Depression and suicide rates based on prejudice actions in the deaf community would decrease drastically. Children of all ages and grade levels would be able to connect with their deaf peers, supporting one another by breaking down the communication barrier. Now that we know the potential that learning ASL can bring, let's go into the next steps. One beneficial way to learn ASL is through YouTube. Many deaf vloggers have channels that teach how to teach using signing captions. There are also numerous websites, such as lingvino.com, that provides a 10-minute lesson each day. Also, as I have addressed in previous points, that attending a deaf event is a great way to get involved in the community. Most deaf people are very welcoming and really excited to share their language with others. Most colleges and universities, as well as primary schools, offer ASL classes. This is a good way to dip your toes in and learn more about deaf culture, norms, and their history. Here are some tips to learning ASL. Number 1, watch yourself in the mirror. It can be very beneficial to see your body language as well as your hand motions and your facial expressions. Number 2, watch short films. There are so many deaf films all over the internet, and it's a good way to really seek in the language if you watch the film with captions, but really watch the signing as well as the captions, and then watch it a second time, but just solely focus on the signing. One of my favorite ways to practice sign language for me personally is to sign one of my favorite songs. I hear certain words, and then I know that sign, and then I practice. Language can do one of two things. It can separate us and promote isolation, or it can be used to come together. Going back to the beginning of my speech, I talked about having a deaf customer. My ability to communicate with this individual created an accessible environment for a member of the deaf community. By more people learning how to sign, even simple phrases can make going shopping, ordering, and communicating much easier. Thank you.